It's when we can see the good, even in those who have caused us the most harm, that we can truly understand the meaning of forgiveness.
Gabrielle Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers.
When I see good in others, I acknowledge it out loud. That's an easy theme for me here, because all I want to see in each of you is the good in you. I want you to come here on this show and have the freedom to express the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want this to be a place where you can know that even in your darkest moments, there is grace. That even in your most uncomfortable situations, there is a divine opportunity for personal growth. That even in the people who have caused you the most harm, there is good. There is good in those souls. It's when we can see the good, even in those who have caused us the most harm, that we can truly understand the meaning of forgiveness. And forgiveness is the conduit for miracles. Forgiveness is the undoing of a fear-based belief system. Forgiveness is a reconnection to the truth of who we are. A lot of people on a spiritual path get really hung up about forgiveness. They start to feel like, how could I possibly forgive? Or really not just people on a spiritual path, people in general could feel the feeling of, how could I possibly forgive someone for this thing that they did to me or for this horrific event? I get it. But when we carry a resentment, they say in the 12 steps, it's like drinking poison or taking that bat and hitting yourself over the head with it. When we become willing to forgive, when we become willing to see the good in all, the God in all, that is when we begin to know the true meaning of forgiveness, the miracle of forgiveness, the freedom of release and surrender from the bondage and the burden of carrying a resentment, of bringing the past into the present and projecting it onto the future. Our ability to see the good, even in the people who have caused us the most harm, is our greatest superpower, because it will ground us back into the truth of who we are, which is that same goodness, which is that God within us. This is clearly a topic I think that needed to come through today, forgiveness. The universe always hooks us up with what we need. I've got my deck right here. I'm going to put it down now. The practice of forgiveness is a radical experience because it helps us not only undo the burden of that inflicted belief system or pain or suffering from the past, but it also releases us of the attachment to the bond that is negative, right? To that vibration. You're saying, I want to create boundaries. Forgiveness literally is a massive invisible boundary, because when we don't have energetic boundaries when we're emotionally entangled in relationships. So we get cords that attach, right? We've talked about cord cutting here on the show before. Maybe we can do that now. We talk about cords getting attached with loved ones, particularly parents. I always say that your family members, particularly your parents, are the ones that can push your buttons most, because they're the ones who put them there. And so we have this entanglement that starts to affect us as adults. And the stories from the past and the emotional connection and that sort of interwoven mending of relationship stuff carries into the present. So you have the awareness, you have the acknowledgement. There's a lot of pathways to cutting those cords and releasing those attachments that are negative and creating boundaries. And today we're going to hit it from the angle of forgiveness. Sometimes the quickest way into a heart-opening experience of forgiveness is by recognizing the wound in the other. I want you to do an exercise of seeing her for the first time. And this is a chapter in my book, Judgment Detox. It's called See for the First Time. And it's a practice of seeing that person, and typically it's a parent, but seeing that person who is, trying to control you or someone who's caused you harm, And I'd like to suggest that you do this with somebody that, hasn't necessarily done something horrific to you, because sometimes really scary stuff like an abuser or something, it may be too soon to do that. But a parent that's like trying to control you, or an ex-boyfriend, this is a great beginning step, is to start to see her for the first time. And the practice is really creating a written list of all of the qualities in your mother that you admire, the qualities that you're grateful for, and maybe even start to go to the place of recognizing, what are her wounds? What are the things that are driving her to feel the need to control me? Because one of the fastest ways to forgiveness is to recognize the humanity and the good, which is what our card says. When I see good in others, I acknowledge it out loud. Acknowledging it to yourself is a massive step forward in your potential to forgive. What ultimately will happen is, as you see her for the first time, as you see her humanness, as you see the God in her, as you see the love in her, as you see her in her light and in her motherhood and in her grace and in all that she has brought into your life, the good, you will begin to release her. As you release her, you become released. As you let go of that resentment, that attachment, that anger, that frustration, you dissolve the boundaries with love. If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.